Level 1. The raw feed. The air in the terminal is thick with the scent of grease, ozone, and the stale sweat of men who have accepted their place as disposable assets. You are standing outside the gates, a rejection letter in your hand, a digital signature of your insignificance. To the board inside, you are zero. You are a replaceable gear in a dead-end operation that doesn't even merit a second glance. The heavy iron gates clanging shut feel like a final judgment on your worth, but where they see a failure, you see the baseline data. The cold tile of the basement is not your destination. It is the calibration point for a cynical ambition that ignores moralistic sermons in favor of a cold calculation of the market's opportunity window. You realize that the hierarchy doesn't hate you, it simply doesn't recognize you. And that is your greatest tactical advantage. The genesis of high-intensity execution. The transition from a $0 base to industrial dominance begins with the total rejection of the hustle delusion and the adoption of an intensity of execution protocol. You are currently positioned at the lowest tier of the hierarchy, viewed by the board as a replaceable gear in a dead-end operation. This rejection is not a terminal failure, but the baseline data required to map the factory's systemic vulnerabilities and logistical leaks. Your trajectory requires a cynical ambition that ignores moralistic sermons in favor of a cold calculation of the market's opportunity window. You begin to document the mud, the physical and systemic friction that slows the machine, identifying where the current leadership is bleeding resources. Every moment of exhaustion is transformed into a metric of observation. You are building the intellectual capital that the directors inside have lost to their own arrogance. You adopt a protocol of silence, moving through the periphery of the industry, while building a shadow network that operates outside the board's detection. Level 2. The specialization. The transition from laborer to operator requires a surgical detachment from the physical toil. While your peers complain about the heat and the hours, seeking comfort in their mediocrity, you are performing a systemic audit of the boardroom's shadow protocols. You recognize that the current management is operating in a state of data silence, blinded by past successes and legacy processes that no longer fit the modern terrain. You are moving through the mud of the factory floor, but your mind is already in the heights of strategic command. You are not working for a wage, you are gathering the technical metrics needed to trigger their inevitable obsolescence. Every inefficient handoff, and every wasted kilowatt, is a documented weakness you will later exploit. 2. Mapping the architecture of obsolescence. To dismantle the entity that rejected you, you must first achieve a transcendence of the operational layer to understand the boardroom's shadow protocols. While the current management operates in a state of data silence, you are performing a systemic audit of their inefficient leverage and draining resources. Every hour spent in the mud of the factory floor is an investment in understanding the engineering of results that the elite directors have forgotten. You are not a laborer. You are an intelligence operator gathering the technical metrics needed to trigger their inevitable obsolescence. You identify the shadow hierarchy, the informal power structures and key technicians who actually keep the heart of the factory beating. The isolation of the summit begins here, as you distance yourself from the herd to align your vision with the cold mechanics of industrial hegemony. You begin to recognize that the factory's survival depends on a logistics model they are too prideful to update, creating a perfect entry point for an external disruption. Before we proceed to the logistics of scale, a master strategist knows that no resource should go underutilized. While you build your empire, your digital infrastructure can work in the background. Honeygain allows you to monetize your unused internet bandwidth, turning a passive asset into a stream of capital to fund your initial maneuvers. It is the ultimate tool for an operator who understands that every cent of leverage counts. Use the link in the first pinned comment to start with a $3 bonus and begin your own resource extraction today. Level 3. The Operator Protocol. The climb from zero demands a mastery of the science of efficiency. You have taken the chaos of your initial poverty and refined it into a scalable protocol of asset shielding. You are no longer reacting to the market. You are beginning to dictate its rules through the psychology of power. By identifying the specific point where the factory's supply chain is fragile, you are building a counter-system, a leaner, more lethal architecture that offers superior logistical mastery. This is the phase of predatory growth, where the hunter begins to acquire the tools to consume the hierarchy. You start small, acquiring the micro-suppliers that the factory relies on, effectively strangling their oxygen while they remain oblivious. 3. Arbitrage of risk and the logistics of scale. The ascent from zero requires an alignment of long-term vision that utilizes the psychology of power to dictate new sector rules. You must master the science of efficiency by transforming the chaos of your initial poverty into a scalable protocol of asset shielding. By identifying the specific point where the factory's supply chain is fragile, you create a counter-system that offers superior cost-benefit and logistical mastery. This is the phase of predatory growth, where you move from the construction of a small asset to the acquisition of the entire hierarchy. You leverage the board's own greed against them, offering solutions through front companies that are actually Trojan horses designed to increase their dependence on your new command structure. Your internal fury is harnessed into a relentless focus on systemic leverage, ensuring that every move you make increases your dominance. You move from seeking a job to controlling the very conditions that make the job possible, achieving a level of leverage the directors cannot even conceive. Level 4, Systemic Mastery. The takeover is not a loud event. It is a cold maneuver of market hegemony. You walk back through the gates you were once barred from, but this time, the biometric scanners respond to your signature as the majority stakeholder. Owning the factory that rejected you is the ultimate manifestation of historical recognition. You move into the boardroom, replacing the stagnant intent of the previous directors with a legacy architecture. The men who dismissed you are now the variables facing substitution. You have successfully re-engineered their sabotage into a proof of your own systemic dominance, turning their previous arrogance into the rope they used to hang their own careers. 4. The hostile alignment of legacy. Owning the factory that rejected you is the ultimate manifestation of historical recognition and the validation of your internal fury. The takeover is not emotional. It is a cold maneuver of market hegemony, where you demonstrate that the previous board's command was a strategic error. You implement a new protocol of monitoring variables that ensures the board members who dismissed you are now the ones facing substitution. Your presence in the boardroom represents a total reprogramming of the system's intent, moving from stagnation to a legacy architecture. You execute a shadow audit of the remaining staff, purging the loyalists of the old guard and replacing them with protocols of absolute efficiency. The weight of the final decision now rests solely with you, a weight you carry with the practiced ease of an architect who has built his own throne. You reveal the data you collected while in the mud, showing the board exactly how they failed before showing them the door. Level final. The system. The master. The transition from level 1 to level 100 is absolute. You stand at the window of the executive office, looking down at the factory floor where you once stood in the rain. The factory is no longer a place of employment. It is a proof of your ability to manipulate the economy of scale and internal power dynamics. You have moved from the cold tile of the basement to the silence of high-end command. You are the sovereign operator, and the system now responds exclusively to your command protocols. The factory floor is quiet now, not because it is idle, but because it is perfectly efficient under your hand. 5. Hegemony of command. The final protocol. The final stage of this industrial extraction is the absolute control of the variables that once dictated your failure. You have moved from the cold tile of the basement to the silence of the high-end executive office through a relentless focus on systemic leverage. The factory is no longer a place of employment, but a proof of your ability to manipulate the economy of scale and internal power dynamics. You stand as the architect of a new empire, proving that the weight of the final decision is the only true currency in the game of power. Your historical recognition is secured. You are no longer a victim of the system, but the entity that dictates its survival. Every gear, every asset, and every soul within these walls is now a component of your long-term legacy. The isolation of the summit is your reward, a silence that confirms your absolute hegemony over the sector. 6. Conclusion. The sovereign operator. True power is the ability to return to the site of your rejection as the owner of the system's vital organs. You have successfully navigated the isolation of the summit, turning a lack of resources into a logistical advantage. The factory's walls now serve as the physical boundaries of your legacy, a monument to a strategist who understood that the world is moved solely by interest and efficiency. Your transition from level 1 to level 100 is complete, and the board now responds exclusively to your command, the cost of the summit. Look down at the floor where they told you that you were nothing. The machinery is humming, the logistics are perfect, and the board members who laughed are now looking at their severance packages. Answer with the coldness of a master. When you were at the gate with nothing, did you ever doubt this moment, or was your victory already written in the data?